Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Nick DiNatale. He is the founder and CEO of ShipPlug, and ShipPlug is focused on looking at your claims processes around parcel shipping. And Nick has a long history in the parcel shipping industry, so very interested to hear about that and also hear about some of the challenges, pain points that people are experiencing from the shipper side on the parcel carriers and how ShipPlug is kind of coming into play to be able to help them address some of that. And we'll talk a little bit too about Nick's views on what people should be conscious of going into the new year around parcel shipping as well. So Nick, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Kevin. Really excited to be here on the New Warehouse Podcast. Really love the work you guys do.
Definitely. Thank you. And happy to get you on here as well. So tell us a little bit first, I guess, about your background and kind of how that came to the idea and the founding of your now company, ShipPlug.
Yeah, well, unlike most soon-to-be sales guys, I actually started out as an accountant.
Oh, okay.
So really was interested in business from the start with how to save people money. Then I started working at FedEx. My college roommate actually got me into the company. I hated being a CPA.
Yeah.
He recommended you'd be good at sales, you have a good personality, but really with your background in accounting, you could truly help quantify a cost and understand people's supply chain. So I actually got a job at FedEx in our inside sales division with our smallest customers there. And then through my time at FedEx was 12 years, there was 6 promotions. Which it allowed me to see some of the largest customers. It got me a chance to lead people, but really it truly helped me understand the customers, the actual shippers' pain points through thousands of meetings, really getting to hear the voice of the customer. And through that, also getting to see the world with FedEx, live in 5 different cities, really opened up my eyes to diversity of shippers, diversity of thought, and really allowed us now as a company to scale very quickly. So through those 6 promotions at FedEx, had a great experience to meet a lot of customers and make a lot of great friends.
Interesting. And I mean, certainly, seeing that diversity and from the small to the large shipper, I'm sure you're able to take away and learn a lot there. So I'm curious, as you saw that and as you reflect back, I mean, when you look at that small scale shipper versus like the large shipper, what are some of the maybe fundamental differences there or things that, small shippers were kind of missing on that larger shippers were able to be able to catch?
So when you talk about a global enterprise customer shipping hundreds of millions of dollars a year, they have a dedicated team to supply chain.
Right. A
team that looks at data as far as who shipped the package, if it was late, how much did it truly cost by order. Now, for a small shipper to employ 5, 6, 10, even 100 people to truly understand their supply chain is unreasonable. And then the small shipper also has trouble accessing the data. It's not readily available. How much are you paying for this particular product? What the small shipper does is rate quote. They look to see what the price is and they try to build it in. And a lot of times they choose not to sell products because they can't figure out how to make the shipping costs work. So that's the biggest difference, is how does a small shipper get the data of those large shippers? And then even with some large shippers, access to the data is becoming harder and harder and more confusing. So that's a pain point of both, but really at a disadvantage for the small shipper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so key. What you mentioned there in the beginning is that, you know, you look at a larger business, right? There's more resources to be able to do those types of things. And in reality, like, you know, the smaller shipper, in order to try and work their way up to being one of those large shippers, like they need to figure out how can they look at that data and make those improvements around that, but they don't quite have the resources to do that. So I mean, tell us a little bit about, you know, as you started to see these things and realize that and, you know, saw some of these pain points that were out there. I mean, how did that come to, like, the idea of ShipPlug?
Well, first I thought when I was working with the carriers that it was our job as salespeople to make the data easy to understand. Now, I worked countless hours making Excel sheets, working with our BDA teams to make presentations and make it easy to truly compare not only cost but service. So I had a ton of experience in truly understanding what the customer wanted to see. So then when we started ShipPlug, that was our goal, is to make it easy. And from those meetings that we had, we wanted customers to understand how the surcharge increases impact them, how that impacted certain products. Is it a good idea to offer 2-day shipping that's free versus 5-day? Really trying to work with the customer more on the data side to make better decisions, not only to cut costs, but to help increase sales through working with their shopping cart.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it's an interesting gap that you identified there where, you know, it's like being able to understand those kind of nuances around the shipping is a difficult thing. So being able to kind of come in place, especially with your experience at FedEx and understanding how all that stuff works, and now bring that into play where you can help these shippers be able to make better decisions around that shipping and you know, reclaiming some revenue too, potentially, and, you know, saving costs overall. I mean, obviously it's such a great thing and so important to be able to move your business forward and be more successful. So, I mean, ShipPlug is focused kind of on the claims area process and looking at these parcel shipments as well. So, I mean, tell us kind of why, you know, that claims process, and, you know, see things like you mentioned the 2-day shipping, but, you know, if it was late in that 2-day shipping, like there's a claim that could be had there, but it's not necessarily been the most easy thing to navigate, right, for those customers or those shippers. So tell us a little bit about, like, why is that such a difficult thing for shippers to be able to do, or even be aware or dissect that data to understand what's really going on there?
Well, so I think a few things. The claims process is not only confusing, also identifying late shipments and truly understanding what the service is, but then also understanding what you're paying. We run into customers countless times that they don't file claims for damage, for lost packages, because it's difficult. The process is you need to get a picture of the packaging. So imagine in e-commerce, I ship you a package, it gets delivered, and it shows up and it's broken. Well, I've already thrown the packaging away.
Yeah.
So now I have to, as the shipper, still try to get my customer to take a picture, send it to me. I then need to show that it was packaged properly at the point of shipment, and still that there's proof of payment from my customer that actually bought that. With that hours in the tedious manual process, small shippers, scaling customers, and even the larger shippers don't have the time because the ROI for their staff to handle that is just way too expensive. So that's where we've came in, where we've helped automate that. side of it where you could file for every claim. It takes minutes. We have our software portal, makes it easy for our customers to log in and view the data, get status updates. And then as far as the late shipments, most e-commerce companies, $10, $20 shipment. Well, if it's late, they actually don't know that the package is late. Most e-commerce consumers aren't going to call if their package is 1 day late. As long as the tracking updated, they see it's coming, it's still on the truck. Now, there are some, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We've all heard the horror stories, but most of the time that doesn't happen. Our software tracks that to not only file and give you visibility on which ones are late and, yes, ultimately, hopefully get a refund, but we give you the reason it was late. And then that allows you to make decisions on which carrier is truly performing better. You would think the weather is the same for FedEx, DHL, UPS. All the carriers have the same weather. Yeah. But it's really interesting when you dig into the reasons why they're late. But then I think most importantly for e-commerce and all shippers, understanding what you're paying is very difficult. Now, UPS, December 26th, FedEx, January 4th, they're all changing their rates again. But both companies on the earnings call announced that the new way of charging shippers is demand surcharges. So that means that they can fluently change the price and in some cases even add new surcharges. Shippers negotiate, large shippers are in contracts for 3 years. Yeah. Most shippers, large shippers are negotiating once a year. Small shippers tend to never negotiate. So with how rapidly the rates change, it's so hard for any size shipper to manage their shipping costs. And then truthfully, to manage what they're charging for shipping. Everybody wants to give free shipping. The e-commerce is in a world where the consumer thinks the shipping should be free. And we all know that's not free. The pick and pack's not free. The warehousing, gas, paper, that's not free. Well, that's the expectation of the end consumer. So it is so hard for customers. We're going to do a $200 and then we can ship anything over that. Yeah. With how rapidly and how expensive the shipping charges can change, they could easily be losing money on those sales. So by providing the data, especially around the pricing, we really can help our shippers make decisions on their shopping cart as well. So that's the true value add, is to really get the data, not only to make the claims easier, refunds for the late shipments, but to truly help you understand what you're paying for your actual shipments. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's such a great thing to be able to see that visibility as well. Because like you said, I mean, there's fluctuations all the time. It's one thing to understand whether, your carriers are actually delivering on what your agreement is and what's supposed to happen there. And then it's another thing to understand, like, what's that true cost of shipping that product and how do we make sure that, our pricing is aligned on that when it goes to the customer and the consumer and understand those things. So, I mean, what do you think right now as we look at, and, I think it's pretty interesting. Like, there's always a rate increase discussion around this time, around the peak season, holiday season. But I mean, what do you think right now as shippers are looking and, working with carriers and trying to figure out the best mix for their parcel deliveries? What are some of the biggest challenges that they're seeing at the moment?
Well, I think as far as the rate increase, it's given as an average of 5.9%. But as you know, Kevin, the carriers change the surcharges much differently than 5.9%. Some surcharges going up as much as 16, 17%, but then it also becomes more confusing when they change the logic, right? Delivery area surcharge now has different zip codes. But what if your building, your business is in a zip code that changed? Now, all of a sudden, that dramatically changes your inbound costs, right? Yeah. So what's happening is it's becoming so confusing to manage the changes. That's the biggest struggle of the shipper right now. And then also to manage the expectation of a single source carrier. 10 years ago, you shipped with FedEx or UPS. Because of COVID, more players got into the game.
Yeah.
So now final mile is everywhere, right? Now there's Amazon. There's all these different carriers that do the shared model with the post office, making the final mile delivery. Now there's many more opportunities for shippers that truly understand the data to pick the correct carrier, put the right package in the right network. Combination of those two things can make or break an e-commerce company, especially if you're selling something that has a low AOV.
Yeah.
It's really a price war against your competitors, and truly understanding the data and then having the data make actionable decisions on the best carrier to ship with, that can make or break a company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so interesting, like you said, to see how many different players are now coming into the space, and that the options that are out there it's a good thing, right? Because you can get more competitive pricing potentially, but then it's also another difficult thing to manage and understand, like, right, what is the right mix. And I mean, what's your advice around that? I mean, if you're a shipper and, like you said, you know, traditionally you would just go UPS or FedEx and that's it. But now you have like regional players versus, like a laser ship or something of that nature. I mean, what's your advice to a shipper on how they should start to look at that mix and work in other maybe options than the traditional big guys?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, I think now, being that it is so competitive, because like you mentioned, the players got into the game because COVID had an uptick in volume. Now, like you mentioned, the pricing power has swung back into the shipper's favor, because now carriers are announcing record low volumes. So the shippers need to first make sure they take a meeting with every single carrier. I know everybody likes the UPS driver. They love their FedEx sales rep. Yeah. But so many times we'll see shippers not take a look, right? You're spending $5 million in shipping, and you don't know who the competitors' reps are. It doesn't make sense to not at least check something that's your largest cost, but then also be willing to test out new carriers. There's so many companies out there that have the same or better transit time than the major carriers, and they don't have the brand recognition though. But I do think it makes sense at some point, when it's half the cost, to at least take a look and test it, just as you would with advertising. You do split tests, right? Our big shippers are advertisers. Yeah. Well, test the carriers to truly see how the performance is. But in order to do that, you need data. So make sure that that's a priority, whether you're getting it from your carrier, whether you're getting it from someone like ShipPlug. Make sure that you have the data to make the best decisions, and then to truly make the test impactful. Don't always take the word that the carrier you have to single source. That's not true, even for the smaller shippers at this point.
Interesting. And I think, do you think that those smaller parcel carriers that are coming up, and some more regionalized players as well, I mean, do you think that they're going to continue to take more market share, or is it something like you said, during COVID, they popped up, there was an opportunity, and maybe we're going to see that die down a little more in the coming years?
Well, I don't think that they'll all last. Okay. I don't think that there'll be this many. Now, I think that the market needed a change. One of the biggest complaints we've ever gotten from our customers is that this is a duopoly.
Yeah.
UPS and FedEx have very similar surcharge pricing, very similar list rate pricing. Well, now there's a big player, Amazon, in the game, but there's all these small players. Now, they got into the business to compete on cost. When there's that many now competitors competing truly on a cost model, that becomes where it's difficult. So it's going to be the company that can truly get their costs down and truly have the best tracking, truly have the best transit time, have the best customer service. So I don't think they'll all last, but there's definitely going to be more than the duopoly moving forward in this space. It's the market commands it now with the change of e-commerce, and from the data, it's going to continue to grow. So the more people want to order stuff to their house, the more it's needed for more players. It was accelerated through COVID, which I do see is having a slowdown.
Yeah,
but I think the company that compete on cost and truly have the best service is going to win.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, so how some of these continue to grow and maybe offer better services and take up a little more market share from the duopoly, as you mentioned there, two big guys. And what about USPS? What do you think about USPS? Because it seems like they're making more of a push into the parcel market as well, right?
Yeah, I think UPS, as they've mentioned, they want to have more of a direct relationship with the shipper, where in the past, to get their volume, they would work with the huge shippers, but a lot of consolidators. Where I think now the thought is, let's go direct to the consumer. Why that's good for the small to medium-sized shipper, they're now willing to have a relationship with you, where in the past they wouldn't. They wanted to go through some resellers. There's a ton of USPS resellers out there.
Yeah.
Where now I think that they're really embracing the parcel network. I mean, the post office was built to deliver letters.
Yeah.
The network is letters. Now, I do think they see the writing on the wall that they need to compete in the parcel space. They have the lowest cost of delivery, which is the hardest for any carrier. So I think the post office will always be a viable product and solution, especially in that small to medium sized space. It's hard for a FedEx, a UPS, a big integrator to pass off a cost that low and the low weight, low value item for a shipper that's just getting started or has low volume. So I think the post office is getting better and will continue to change their network to meet the demands of the parcel, but I like their strategy of going more direct with the shipper.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, right? Because I mean, I think there's certainly, I mean, if I'm USPS, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of opportunity here, right? To do something, especially with the network they have already, with post office all over the place and trucks on the ground every day anyway, going to everybody's house. So it'd be interesting to see how that continues to develop as well. So, I mean, when we look at the ShipPlug technology itself, I mean, when we start to think about how do we navigate looking at all these different options, I mean, how does the ShipPlug technology come into a shipper's, I guess, tech stack and help them to navigate all these different options?
What's great is that there's no work needed from the shipper. We integrate with the carrier. So we integrate with FedEx, we integrate with UPS. Now we can manage without any work the late shipments, the filing for claims. We can then use the software to benchmark and really show the best savings that we've seen from a particular customer with similar volume. But the biggest thing is that there's no integration, no additional IT work. We get that question all the time. And because we've pre-built it for all of the major carriers, we have Post Office, DHL, UPS, MI, LaserShip, we have them all.
Yeah.
So because of the ease of use, and most times we're handling a task that shippers don't want to do. Shippers don't want to file the claims. They can't track the packages that are late. So because of our ease of use with our technology, our visibility of the data we most times never have a customer say no. And our repeat customers have been in the 90% because we truly follow up. We help keep the customer competitive with the claims process, with refund management, with pricing, but ultimately we add a ton of supply chain value. So I think with the ease of use and the knowledge that we bring with our background and ultimately our software, we can really impact a customer's supply chain with limited work on the customer's end.
Interesting. And
there's no cost unless we can find you a savings, no upfront costs. It's a fairly good model.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer, especially if you guys are doing the integration on the other side and nothing to worry about there. You're just plugging in, I guess, so to speak. I guess the idea of ShipPlug right there. So, yeah, so very interesting and definitely, I think, very smart to be able to take this and address these challenges that shippers will see and come across and be able to make their business a little more nimble and flexible. I think overall, when it comes to the parcel side and shipping and being able to understand, I mean, really what's going on when you're having those packages go out and what does it mean for your business? Where are you potentially not gaining money that you should be getting back or saving money where you should be saving money? So really interesting technology, Nick. And, you know, as we look into 2024 and the new year, I mean, what do you think is probably the one biggest thing that shippers should be conscious about around parcel shipping and parcel shipping rates in general?
I think, like we mentioned in the past, and with all of the new carriers getting into the market, with the price fluctuation, manage your most expensive costs. Most times in e-commerce, shipping's in your top 5 costs. So really, truly partner with someone that can help you understand the data and has the experience to help manage the changes. It's very difficult to manage changes when you see one invoice and one agreement a year. Every sales rep in every industry is taught to tell their customers they have the best price and they have the best service they've ever seen. And that's not the truth. I mean, we see countless times where customers are mispriced because they don't understand the data. So understand the data in one of your highest cost areas and truly understand that it's very hard to compete with the global customers if you don't always look at your biggest expense. Yeah. I think that's such a great tip there and great advice as well. I mean, it is such a big cost for the shipper. So you want to be as conscious and as diligent about maintaining and managing that cost. I mean, it's a cost that you have to have, right? But you can be smarter about that cost. And when you're smarter about that cost, you can help to improve your business overall. So Nick, appreciate you coming on the show here and talking to us about ShipPlug and all things parcel carriers too, as well. Very insightful conversation. If people are interested in learning more about ShipPlug or getting connected with you, what's the best way to do that? Just go to shipplug.com, request a demo. You can meet with one of our seasoned salespeople. We do a free analysis, and in that conversation, we'll definitely help you improve your business for sure and save a lot of money.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well, so people can easily find it. So, Nick, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.